and I got 4 or 5 people to sign in, but out of like 12 groups that came through, but it was only over a 2-hour period.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get started because it's 11:01. I know Stephanie is traveling back and Iman is in Nevada, I believe. So for now, it's going to be us three. And so today, to recap, Thursday, I believe it was, when there was the e-Edge class, no one showed up on the call. So we do not have a recording from that. And we will probably reschedule that class a little later. But for now, there was no class on Thursday.
All right.
Okay, so today's tips and tricks around the contract itself, and this can always be situational. So I'm going to give you some tricks of the trade. If you guys have questions, please stop me. This might not be an hour long. I'm just going to go through the 2 different contracts, the listing agreement and the 1-to-4 agreement. And if we find that we need any of the additional items, then we can do that. But I'm just going to go through some of the main strategies and things I've seen as a listing agent and a buyer's agent. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So the listing agreement shouldn't be too detailed. It's pretty straightforward. And so there are the few key items, though, that I want you to understand. Some of the major issues with listings that I've seen is divorce and death when it comes to selling a house. Those are the 2 items with the parties that I've seen cause the most issue, because they are still on the title, and the whatever paperwork that during those stressful situations never got to the right hands, or that the clients just didn't know how to go about the process. So then some agents, before doing pre-work prior to listing it, they go and list the property, get a contract, head to closing, and then all of a sudden we have to go to probate, or we never did the divorce process, or they don't have the right divorce settlement papers, something to that nature. So the first thing you should do when listing a home is look at the tax records to see who is on the title on the tax record. Now, I even recommend going a step further and opening title as long as you know you're getting the listing. Don't open title until you actually have the paper signed. But once you get the paper signed, open title prior to actually listing the property to check to see if there's any other parties on it. If there are, then you have to deal with that situation before I would list it. Pretty straightforward. On improvements and accessories, so we're moving on to the property. I've had a lot of agents actually go to closing, walkthrough happens, and these sections right here on the listing agreement, and there's also the section on the 1-to-4, cause a buyer to say, well, we're not closing because the seller took XYZ. So just please read or verify with clients prior to listing the property what actually gets excluded and what actually stays. Ceiling fans, mirrors, the holders, the speaker holders, and the brackets for TVs, those actually stay. Water softeners stay. That one I've seen a lot lately cause issues. Satellite dishes, swimming pool equipment, and the other big ones are blinds and draperies. So all those things need to be listed excluded if you are taking them. Some people say that you shouldn't list it until those items are gone. I disagree. I just think that you have to be very good at writing it and making it clear that things don't go with the property. On the real estate agreement right here, a lot of agents put 3% here and then 3% on the MLS participants. This is actually the total. So this needs to be the total commission, not just half of it. Technically, if a buyer's agent wanted to see your listing agreement, which they have the right to, and that said 3%, you could earn no commission. Have I seen that happen? No, but technically it is a contract and that could happen. Okay, when it comes to the contract itself, I think that's the main things that I want to point out to you of the listing. Before listing a property, I would always verify the square footage as well. That's another big item that usually goes missing or isn't accurate. A lot of times the tax records will show one thing, the old MLS sheets will show another, and sometimes even the seller says a different amount. So you really want to verify the actual square footage prior to listing a property. If there's such a discrepancy, I would advise hiring an appraiser. I know that locally here it's about $100 to $150 to get an appraiser to measure a property. I don't like surprises throughout a contract, and getting everything prepped prior to actually listing. And I know you guys are in a seller's market, so it would be natural just to put it on so that it sells quickly. But I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right, even if it takes a day or two longer. Any questions so far?
No.
No? Okay. Make sure you have all the documents that are necessary placed on the MLS. It just saves time and it makes you look like a better agent to your clients and to your fellow associates. Get the seller's disclosures, get the exclusion list, get the T47, all those items, get them and either have them ready or put them on the MLS. Also, pictures are the #1 most important item when listing a home on the internet. So do not go cheap on your pictures. Find a good photographer. You don't have to go spend $500 or $1,000. Yet, even for starting out photographers that don't do good work, those aren't the people you hire. You hire the ones that actually do quality photos. Okay. Now the listing, another fun tip, and I don't know if I have it on my website. Let me check. In your guys' situation, you have a lot of multiple offers. So before I even accept offers or list it, I make a multiple offer spreadsheet for it and put it in its own little folder. And I once I start getting offers, I submit the offers onto this spreadsheet so that I know what the offer entails quickly, and I can send it over to my client. I might have it on here. Let's see. I have a different laptop for my other work. It's not on here, but I will get it put on the resources. What it looks like is just an Excel spreadsheet with offer amount, earnest money, days, option period, days, option period fee, all the key items so that I can put it on a spreadsheet, send it over to my seller, or print it and present it to my seller. And we can go through it real quickly and they can see what the differences are right away. So with those pieces, then I just go in and input it real quickly once I start getting offers. Okay. So that's the listing. Really, the listings are less strategic up front. Your strategy really starts once the buyer starts submitting an offer. And so we're going to go to the 1 to 4 contract. This is all simple. Again, improvements. You've got all the items. You really need to make sure that you list what's excluded or in. And this isn't where you put included items. That's a non-realty addendum. So all exclusions are in item D. Now, if your client wants something, let's say they want the mirror, and on the MLS it says excluded the mirror. If you're the buyer's agent, you probably wouldn't put it under exclusions because you would want, your client wants the mirror. So you leave it off until they come back and say, no, we want the mirror. It's on the listing agent to check the contract. So if you're representing the buyer, you need to do what your buyer, you don't need to do. It is highly recommended that you go off what your buyer wants. Now, you're there to advise them. So maybe it's not in their best interest to try to go for the mirror because they're offering so much lower. It is very situational, but know that you're protecting the buyer, so you're going to write it in the best of your ability on behalf of the buyer. So if you're the listing agent, make sure that everything your client wants is on that contract. I'll give you a perfect example real quick. I helped my brother and sister-in-law buy a house recently. And once we closed, they did a lease back. So my brother and sister-in-law stayed there for a couple days and we had a walkthrough. And the buyer went out into the house. I get a call from the buyer's agent saying, Lana, I think we have a misunderstanding. And I said, what do you mean by that? She goes, I remember you said the refrigerator stayed. And I know very clearly it did not say, yet I also knew it was nowhere on the contract. So supposedly the client thought he was getting the refrigerator, yet nowhere on the contract did it say that. So I knew I was safe, but ultimately that buyer's agent was probably buying a refrigerator because somehow the client thought they were getting it. So please be aware of what you put in writing, double checking the contract, and making it very clear to your client what they get and what they don't get. This is pretty standard. Earnest money. So you guys are in multiple offer. Great question. So if the buyer does want it, they put it in a non-realty addendum, which is actually this document right here. You put the address, a sum of, for us, we understand that you have to give some type of dollar value. So usually we put $1 here. I'll check with Liz to see if she agrees with that. That could be a per broker thing. But you either put 0 or $1 or whatever you negotiate, and then you would write refrigerator. I never can spell it. Fridge and kitchen, and then you can put stainless steel, model number. I mean, the more information, the better. So location, color, model is always nice, but this isn't always a necessary item. So anything you want outside of attached items goes on a non-realty addendum. Okay, back to the 1 to 4. So earnest money. So you guys are in multiple offer situation, and obviously all items are negotiable and can make things stronger. But here are the 4 kind of key items that make an offer stronger. It's obviously more money, but that's not always an option because you may not be able to appraise for that amount, or your client may not be able to offer that amount. So more money is not always an option, yet it is what can make it stronger. A bigger deposit makes it stronger. So what I like to do, and this is me, this is how I win multiple offers. I put their down payment as their earnest money. So if they're FHA and they're putting 3.5%, then I do the 3.5% as their earnest money. 5%, 10%, even some of my conventional buyers will put 10 to 20%. I've even had a cash buyer put all of it into earnest money to get the offer because they wanted the house that bad. So when you're advising clients in a multiple offer situation, that is a bigger ticket item. Now be really sure that you're watching your timelines and you're negotiating strong, because if you do lose it for whatever reason that is in your control, then that's not going to be a good thing. But I know because we're strong agents that we're going to watch our timelines. So that shouldn't be an issue for you. Title policy. Typically the person paying for the title policy gets to pick the title policy. That's another item that can make your offer stronger. So that's number 3, is the buyer expense. So really anything that you put on your buyer to pay for makes it stronger. So higher deposit, more money, or less expenses to the seller. And lastly, less contingencies, which would mean financing contingency, option contingency, or even like title or HOA contingencies, things like that. So those are the 4 items to make your offer stronger. And I rarely have the buyer pay for it because it's expected in Texas for the seller to. But to make an offer stronger, I have had them. This is about 1% of the purchase price. It's probably a little less, but I always like to quote high. Now I'm going to ask you guys, because I actually don't know Liz's standpoint on the survey. Do you guys utilize the T47 and the old surveys a lot still?
Not really done enough to really know. not done a listing, so.
Okay. So here's my perspective. Coming from Florida, we were every buyer was required to get a new survey. And that was just to protect pretty much all parties, the title, the seller, the buyer, because then they really know what they're getting into. When I came over here and I found out that people can self-elect to use a prior survey from like 20 years ago that someone hand draws on and a notary signs it, I just found that ridiculous. And I know it's legal, and Texas still allows it. However, I do know they are in discussion and debate around not allowing T47 and old surveys still. So we advise our clients to do 2 or 3. We tell our listing agents to never allow their client to provide a survey, that the buyer at the buyer's expense must purchase their own survey, because we don't want that liability going back on the seller for any reason. So we just have the buyer get their own survey at their expense. Now, if it doesn't say that and you have a buyer, then I would say that we go for number 3 and ask for the seller to furnish a new survey to the buyer. Now, in 2015, my team leader at the time actually is going to be the president of our association, and she also sits on the TREC advisory board. And she said that this was one of the #1 lawsuits in 2015 was over surveys. So that's really where it started in our office, to be advising not to use old surveys. Again, Liz and I are going to have to sit and talk about her thoughts on this, but I can tell you just from my agent perspective, I would not allow my clients to use an old survey. If it's new construction, yes.
I guess I'm sorry, but I guess that was a question. If you're in like a subdivision, where everything's chopped up, would that be a little different than buying acreage in your mind, or are you really referring to every time?
I'm referring to every time. One of the big lawsuits that everyone ended up having to pay $8,000 because of a fence in a subdivision neighborhood. Because the neighbor built a fence on a concrete fence, actually, on the back of the house, and ended up going on the neighbor's line because the old survey was plotted wrong. And the survey company from, I think, 15 years ago, about 10 years ago, back when the crash happened, they went out of business. So the survey company was no longer to be found or sued. So the title company that did it, and the buyer and the owner and the neighbor ended up paying $8,000 at the end for fees and to get it fixed. So for me, it's just a safety and a let's spend $400 now to not have to potentially spend $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 later. Now, new construction doesn't have to provide a survey, so your client should ask for a survey because they don't legally have to, and they don't get a survey usually done to give to you. They do their different phases. So yeah, they get different permits and items that way, but they never have to provide a survey to a client. So I would advise them to get one in a new construction. If it's maybe a year or two old, that could be a different story in my mind. But really, I'm pretty adamant about getting new surveys. Because there's pipes and easements and fences and pools and all kinds of stuff, no matter what type of property you're on. Okay, so there's my rant about surveys. Let's see. Seller's disclosure, just know that 99% of the time a seller's disclosure has to be provided, even if it's an estate, a divorce, a investor. The only people not required really is a foreclosure or military, or there's a few others that's in the Texas property code. But a lot of times you'll see that in an estate they'll say they're not required, but that's not true, because in a estate someone is willed the property. So the person who's now the owner of the estate is now liable to provide a seller's disclosure. Doesn't mean they know anything about the property, but they do have to have one legally to provide. Property condition, we usually say buyer accepts the property as is, and then we put home to be professionally cleaned within, like, I think we do 12 hours of closing. Some people put and receipts. Now, some people put deep cleaned, some people put and carpet cleaned, as steam cleaned as well. So if you don't do this, and we've had this issue since I am a licensed supervisor here for the broker, I get a lot of the upset client calls from even just clients not in coaching. And one of them was that the client was upset because the house was still dirty when they left. Well, I mean, people who are clean and considerate will clean the house when they move, but it's not a requirement to the contract. So nowhere in the contract does it say it has to be professionally cleaned or cleaned when it closes. So please understand that if you don't put this and the client doesn't clean, the seller doesn't clean, then your buyer is going to have to get it cleaned themselves if they want it. Okay. Also, another item that I'm not sure if you're aware, there's no comments regards to walkthroughs. So we always ask for a walkthrough in the special provisions. So buyer to have walkthrough within 24 hours of closing. And that's all we put, because we want to make sure that that is something we could cancel based on. Now, you could do a walkthrough, but nowhere on the contract could there be any legal ramifications if you do one and you find something in the house. Closing costs. So you probably aren't running into a lot of this right now, but I do want to make you aware that with closing costs, the seller cares about net. So if you put $5,000 closing costs here, and then you're offering, let's say list price is $200,000, to the seller, you're already offering $195,000. So if you're attempting to win a multiple offer scenario, yet your clients need closing costs, please make your client aware that this is cash to the seller. This is not his net. His 200,000 is not his net. Right off the bat, you're offering him 195 minus all the other expenses they have. So you may have to adjust your offer price depending on the market. Again, we're in a buyer's market here in Houston, so this is very different. But if you're in multiple offers, please let your clients know exactly what you're offering. It's not 200, it's 195. Now also, do you guys know the percentages of what is allowed based on each type of loan for closing costs?
Not off the top of my head, but they
Okay.
were actually doing a lunch and learn today about that.
Okay. Well, FHA, or excuse me, conventional is 3%, and FHA and VA is 6%. So you always have to make sure, because if you're offering 5,000 now and then you have inspection and you want more money, then you're going to have to make sure it doesn't exceed their allowance of concessions based on their loan type. That can backfire too. Okay. All the addendums. Option fee. The lower the option time frame. So standard for us is 10 days. You know, I can easily get an inspector and everybody I need in within 48 hours of an executed contract. So if I'm making a really strong offer, I'm going to do probably a $200 option fee and a 5-day option, or even a 3-day if you want to be really risky. Again, you need to verify all this with your client, but if you want to make an offer really strong, then this item right here is a key to a seller. The less time you have to negotiate, the stronger the offer. And I'll be honest, guys, sometimes representing your buyer is understanding that they might be very fickle, and if they might get very nervous and antsy too. So sometimes giving them 10 days to stew on the property and think about it is not always a good idea. So if I have one of those buyers, I actually recommend to shorten the option period anyway, just because they'll get it done, they'll make a decision, and you can move on from there. Okay, just to verify, you guys know that you have 3 days to get option money by 5 p.m. that time. And or else you have no option period, and earnest money needs to be deposited in a timely fashion. There's actually no time specified for earnest money, but the sooner the better. So I say both just need to be deposited in the first 3 days. Okay. Financing addendum. You got conventional FHA, those are all just standard. Your approval. You have appraisal approval for the life of the contract. So if you're on a loan and you're getting a appraisal, you have property approval, which is not limited to just appraisal. It's also insurability and also repairs that makes you be able to cancel up until closing day if need be. the buyer approval here, if you click on this, this is for your financing. And this usually is within 20 to 30 days, depending on the type of loan. But again, the shorter amount window of buyer approval, the better. And that's really, you need to speak to the lender about. It shouldn't take a lender more than 20 days to approve someone, unless you're VA. Then it might take a little longer, but we have lenders who can get people approved in 10, 15 days over here. So I know it shouldn't take that long. I think that's it really for financing. If you actually read this, and I'm not going to taint you guys because there's a controversy around this section. They recently, yeah, so that's actually what I was going to go into, Krishana. Good point. I really don't believe that this is approval. Like it says, this contract is subject to buyer obtaining buyer approval, and yet buyer approval will be deemed to have been obtained when the terms of the loan described above are available and lender determines that the buyer has satisfied all lender's requirements related to buyer's assets, income, and credit. A lot of us top agents over here believe that that's just pre-approval. A lot of times we feel that this doesn't even matter if they have a pre-approval, because pre-approval is one thing, but underwriting is right here for property approval. It says property approval will be deemed to have been obtained when the property has satisfied lender's underwriting requirements for the loan. So people teach this differently, and that's why I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I will tell you as a listing agent, I believe that this, if they submit the pre-approval, this section doesn't even matter because they already have the credit approval. They just don't have property approval yet, which means they could really cancel up until they need to because they can't get it. But please understand that's the gray answer and not necessarily maybe what your broker or your office is stating. It is a way to potentially get out of the contract or hold someone to the contract too, just depending on what side of the party you're on. I'm going to say, if you haven't read this contract in and out multiple times, I would advise you to do that, because I can tell you where things are that can help you cancel a contract if I need to. But sometimes you don't give those. I'll give you guys those secrets, but you wouldn't do that to the other party because you would hold it in favor of your client. HOA docs, this is kind of where I find people being unrealistic, so I wanted to point it out. A lot of times listing agents will put that subdivision documents are not required, and just know that your clients cannot cancel based on HOA docs then. So if your client does not get the subdivision rules and regulations, which is different from this section, because a lot of people think the authorization is the same as subdivision information, which is not. This is the restrictions and regulations. This is actually the resale certificate and also any of the financials. So resale certificates are required for condos. A lot of FHA and loans will require the resale certificate as well. Conventional, they don't really care unless it's a condo. So just be aware that these are two separate items. And if your client does not get the documents, but then they find out something about the HOA that they don't like, they can't cancel on it. Are there any other documents you guys are seeing show up that you might have questions? I know you guys haven't done a lot of transactions, but are there any documents that you have questions about that you can think of?
I'm sure I will when I get doing stuff, but it's like the only thing I've really been doing is leases so far for the most part. I
Okay.
have the one buyer, potential seller, but they're kind of going slow paced on everything. They're not in a big hurry, so.
Okay. Well, I think I'll leave it at there because the rest can be so situational. But those are the main items that I wanted to cover and just have you guys be aware of, and it makes you sound stronger as an agent if you go in and you advise your clients some of these strategies. I know that I had one client come to me at an open house, and this was in Florida, and or I should say prospect because it wasn't a client. And they said that them and their agent has submitted 10 offers, and it was multiple offer situations every single time. And they're like, we're not winning it. And so I advised them, I said, I can't represent you. You have an agent. And I found out it was a KW agent, so I wouldn't do that anyway. Um, I said, but here's the thing, I would advise you to do this, this, and this. And one of the main things was put a higher deposit down and do a little less of an option, which we call them inspection periods, but a little less of an inspection period. And they would say, they said, oh, my agent never told us to do that before. And it's just literally they called me and they said, thank you, we got our next offer accepted. When they did that, they doubled their earnest money and they did like 5 days instead of 7 days for their inspection, and they won the multiple offer bid. And I doubt it was because of the inspection period, but I can tell you it had a lot to do with putting like $8,000 into earnest money. Sellers just like that because that could be theirs if, even though it's not their money and it gets deducted off the top at closing, they think that it could be their money. So if going into things like this, I hope you're taking notes. We are recording it. But when you go in and you are writing offers or just talking to buyers, those are potential conversations that could win you a client or win you the offer as well. So we're wrapped up for the day. It's 11:45. Let's go and look. I think I've sent both of you. Chuck, have you gotten 2 leads so far from me? I sent one the other morning too, I think.
I didn't get any leads directly. Why?
I
The only
sent
thing
one,
I saw was I didn't receive anything.
I sent one to your email the other morning, but I didn't get a response. So
I
okay. Well, I'm sorry about that. Let me get, here is one. I will send it to you right now. I'm going to go back through and maybe I accidentally sent it. So I may have another one to send over to you
all right,
here shortly. But there's one that just came in.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you show that you did send something, let me know so I can look because I was actually just going through trying to clean out my pile of emails and I didn't see anything from you as far as leads.
Okay, yeah, I know because I'm going through my rotating list and it was early morning because I sent it. Oh, you know what? It was through a text message, I thought. Because I'm like, oh, I hope she's up at like 7 a.m. Yep, I sent it through text. I said, here's a lead. And I sent it through text message at Friday at 7:30 a.m. Because Larry texted it to me, so I forwarded it to you.
Oh,
I just sent you a test text to see if you got that.
yeah, I just got it. I know what's going on.
Okay. So I had that one. I know you would be the only one to follow up on that one too. So if you can call both of those, that would be great.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Mia resent it out, Krishana. Did you still not get it? Okay, let me pull up your email so we make sure because I know we resent that out on Thursday too.
Are you talking about that CTE file
Yeah.
or? Yeah, I didn't get the, if she sent it to everybody again, I didn't get that either. I mean, you sent me the file the other day when we were talking and
Is that your right email, Krishana? Okay, let me do this and let's make sure this works because I don't know why that wouldn't happen. Or you know what? Let's check to make sure that it went out.
now are we supposed to be sharing those back with you or?
Yes, once you set up the link, um, it will ask, or there's a second. Um, Here, I'll show you in a minute. Let me see. Some. Okay, so let me send this. So we're gonna go to. Okay, so this is the email that I sent you because she said she sent it out. So let me. Okay. So once you're done with it, you're gonna share the link with me so that I can access it at any point. So when you go into it, it should be on OneDrive, and I need it to be shared through OneDrive because otherwise it won't be a live link. It'll just be, you'll never actually update it for me. Okay, where did it go? Okay, so here it is. I'm gonna open, it says share here. If you share with other people, get a link, and then copy and paste that link to an email and send it to me. So when you go into it on OneDrive, go to share, share with people, get a link, and then copy that link and email it to me.
I must have done something wrong because I saved it all. I have it saved in my OneDrive because that's what I already have, but I don't have a share deal at all at mine.
Hmm.
It's not opening up in Excel online like you have.
Let me go to my OneDrive because I don't open it through there because here's my OneDrive though. So does it look like this when you go into it? Into your OneDrive?
No, my OneDrive, when I go into it, it looks just like a regular folder on your computer.
Okay, so you're going through your computer to access it?
Yes.
Okay, you gotta go through the actual online portal, and that's why.
Yeah, somehow I totally missed that part.
Um, yeah,
Does that
with
mean I have to redo everything?
you, you can probably upload the one. So what I would do is upload the file that you have saved into your
Yeah.
OneDrive and then share that with me, and it will
Well,
keep it
it's on my OneDrive right now.
when you log on and online.
You're talking, what do you mean by log on?
Because you can put OneDrive here on your documents. So see where I have Dropbox?
Yeah, what happens if I open up the folder where you do, because I'm on a regular PC, Windows, where it has all your drives on the left, I have OneDrive shows up and I just click on the folder,
Yes,
just like
that's
I
the
was clicking on the
problem.
folder on. All right.
You have to go live online. So if it's in there when you open it online and it's up to date, then I don't know what's happening. But I'm 99% sure that when you log on to OneDrive through the browser, through Firefox or Google or whatever, um, the basic version before you did anything will probably be what's showing up. So if that's the case, you have to upload the file that you've been working on and then share that file with me. Krishana, did you get the email now? I just want to double check before I let y'all go. Hmm. That is so weird.
Oh, you know what? I think we're fine.
You good?
Yeah, I'm going to email it to you right now. if
Perfect.
you're in the regular version, just like I was talking about, I right clicked on it and under there's a OneDrive little section and it says share a OneDrive link and it gave me a path. So I'm sending to that email now. So I think
Okay,
this will
perfect.
probably work.
It says I sent it, so
I'm getting all your emails, Lana, but like I went back and looked and I can't find where I got anything from Mia for the CTE file. And I think that's odd. What I mean, that
yeah, it's because I got
I'm not.
CC'd on the email she sent, so that's weird. Um, and yes, Chris Fountain, I'll just forward it to you to that email. Okay, cool. Perfect. Got it. And it works. So I will save that. Um, okay, guys. So I'm going to let you guys go for the day. For this week, I want to make sure you guys know about the Gina Ront and Vinny Sinisi script call. You should have gotten a message about that. We'll post it in the Facebook group just to remind you as well. That is going to be Thursday. And it is, if you guys don't know who Gina Rod is, he's from Bold. He's one of the uh, main Bold billboards. He's an awesome guy and amazing at scripts. And Vinny's a top agent as well that's taken Bold about 6-7 times. So they're going to be great to listen to, and you're going to understand how script practicing can elevate your business very quickly. The next class is Wednesday from 1 to 2 about the buyer and the seller process. Okay?
Lana, on the transaction coordination stuff,
Yes.
were you going to talk about that at all anytime, or we just should get a hold of somebody when we're ready to do something? Because one of the things, like I've got a bunch of leases right now I'm getting ready to close, but to pay somebody to do that kind of,
Doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of kills everything on some of them. So
Um, yeah, no, when you are ready, usually that's when we'll get you on the call to go through how they're going to handle everything for you.
so
Christy's going to
I,
talk more about it in the buyer and the seller process as well. But when you get a deal, that's usually when we will have you connect with Angie or Allison.
all right. So I'm all right just doing the leases on myself. I'm not expected.
No, it's not expected to do it on leases. That would be your whole cost, and that
Yeah.
doesn't
All right.
make sense.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something. And
Yep, nope, you're good.
all right.
All right, Chuck, thanks. Go call those leads.
I will.
Okay, bye.
All right.